Unit 1 Tools, Basic Stitches and Seams and its Finishes. Unit 2 Women's Wear, Choli and its variation, Kameez and Lowers. So let's begin with Unit 1 Tools, Basic Stitches, Seams and its Finishes. Module 1 Tools. Today we are going to learn what are the tools used for the garment construction. We will start with the cutting tools. This is called as a shears, which can help to cut the fabric. It's been made with a stainless steel blade and then the brass handle. The handle has two holes. The single small hole will accommodate the small hole can accommodate the thumb finger and the big hole will accommodate the four fingers. So, when we can open it to open the blade and close it to close the blade. When we are cutting, we should be sure that the underblade should touch the table while cutting also. So, only the thumb finger should have an action to move up and down. So, the blade will also move up and down. So, it will be easy to cut and it has to be cut on a straight manner as in a small movements. But the bottom blade should not lift from the table. It should be settle in the table and then the upper blade only have to move. So, this is called as shears, fabric cutting shears. The length may be from 10 inches to 12 inches and more than that also, depends upon the purpose you are using. And we can have the adjustable screw to adjust the blade movement also. Again, another cutting tool is the scissors, which is being used to cut the threads and other trims and all. So, again the stainless steel blade is there, the lower blade and the upper blade, and it's been settled with the screw, and the same thing is been with the small hole and the big hole. Big hole is in accommodating four fingers and the small hole is accommodating this thumb finger. Then we used to cut on the same manner, that opening up will open the blade and closing it will close the blade. So, like that you have to make the cut on the small fabric or a paper or a trim. So, it's called as it's a paper cutting scissor, or it can be used to cut the thread also. And this is called another cutting tool called tweezer. So, thread cutting and all, sorry, this is called trimmer. So, this will be used to trim the thread after stitching the stitch. Excess of thread can also be trimmed, just you have to press it by putting on the surface, then it will be trimmed the thread. So, it is called as a trimmer. And this is another tool which has been helpful to push the raw edges inside. When you are closing the cuff and the collar, the edges can be pushed inside neatly. And this is the tool called a screwdriver, can adjust any adjustment in the machines. Screws can be tightened. There are different size of screwdrivers, bigger size is also there, smaller size will be helped to adjust the screws of bobbin case and the needle position also. This is the medium size of tool which is being commonly used in the sewing machine. And this one is the bobbin case. This one is the bobbin case. This is the bobbin which is being used as a under thread. As under thread, this bobbin case, the bobbin will be put into the case and this thread will be taken by the needle. So, this bobbin and bobbin case will be inserted into the hook set and it will release the thread when you are stitching as an under thread. So, this is helpful to make the stitch deliver the thread as an under thread, and the needle will create a loop by catching this. So, this is called as a bobbin case and the bobbin. Without this we can't stitch in the machine. And this is a wheel called as a tracing wheel. We can trace any mark from one material to other material by using the carbon paper, yellow carbon paper or white carbon paper to transfer the mark from one material to other material. You just pass the wheel on top of it to make the impression to fall on one material to other material. By following the impression, you may also cut the fabric. So, it be used for tracing the line. So, it is called as tracing wheel. And this is a needle box which contain all type of needles, with the longer needle to the smaller needle, thin to thick needle, long eye to the small eye needle. So, it is a set of needle has been available, and we can use the needle for hemming, stitching, unbasting, button making, everything we need to do with the needle. So, it is hand sewing needle, called as hand sewing needle. And these are the pins used to make the garment construction. So, if you wanted to place two material together, you may pin it and check whether the position is right, whether the fitting is right. So, there are different kind of pins. One is the ball head pin, other one has been a T head pin, other one is called as a ball pin, which has been available with the thicker also, thinner also. So, usually if it is a heavy fabric, the heavier pins will be used. When it is silk and other fabric, the very thin, slim pins will be used. So, there are different kind of needles, pins are available, depends upon the fabric which we are using. We may select the needle accordingly. The next one is the thread. Thread, yeah, you can get it in a different yarn twist. So, this is a thread and with the length also. These threads are called as a spool thread, and this is called as a cone thread. So, it has been wind up in a cone, so it is called as a cone thread. It isn't wind up in a spool, it is called as a spool thread. So, this has been wind with a different length of meters. So, this is a thread 300 meters, and sometimes it will be 400 meters, sometimes it will be with a 500 meters is also be available as in length. And also different thickness of thread has been available, 2 ply thread, 3 ply thread, and 20s, 40s, 60s threads are available. The polyester thread, spun thread, or different kind of threads been available with a different color. So, we can choose the thread according to the fabric nature, that if it is a polyester fabric, you can select the polyester thread. Silk fabric can be with the finest thread. And this one is the pin cushion, which is being used to hold the pins in place when you are doing the work in the machine. So, we need to pin. So, this will help you to take the pin quickly from the cushion when you are doing the work. And these are the other trims which is being used while sewing. This is the cord, can be available in the different thickness, different colors, different materials also. And these are the elastics which is being used in different places as half an inch width, 1 inch width, and 1 1/4 inch width. It has been to 3 inches also. It has been from 1/8 of an inch to 3 inches also. We can order according to your requirement. And this is the fusing which has been available as a placket fusing. One side it has been bonded with the bonding, and then other side it is a woven fabric. It has been available with different kind of materials and width and stiffness, thickness. So, we can by the fusing according to the requirement of it. It has been available as a sheet also and in narrow strips also, and the fusings are different, that we will talk about later. And this is the attachment which has been helpful to do the cord piping, called as a single pressure foot. There are different kind of pressure foot. Single pressure foot, it has been with the right side foot. This is called right side foot because it's been at the right side, and there are left side foot is also there. There are zipper foot, there are cording foot, there are compensation foot. Different kind of foots and folders are available that we can see in the sewing. Already you have been seen in the sewing. And then the machine needle. The machine needle is necessary to sew in the machine. So, when we are fixing the thread itself, we have to fix the needle also. This is a sewing needle for a single needle lock stitch. It is a DB cross one. So, the needle will numbered and designated according to the machine type, and see there will be a round type of slot will be there. Here there is a V bend is there, and then the straight line is there. There will be different kind of a needle. We can buy the needle according to the requirement of kind of machine. So, each kind of machine need different kind of needle. So, we should ensure what kind of a needle, what type of needle. The size of needle is depends upon the size of the fabric thickness and the thread which you are going to use. The size range is also different, and the points also different. There are slim point and straight point is there. Other one is a ball point needle is also available. So, when you are sewing with the knitted fabric, we are going to use the ball point needle. The slim point needle has been used for thinner fabrics, and the slit point needle will be used to heavier fabric. You should buy the needle according to the numbering system and the code system which is being used in the which is being briefed in the machine. Apart from this, we used to have the marking chalk or D's is being used to transfer the mark from one line to other line, that also be used, and different kind of hand needle, as I said, heavier needle is also be used for corner turning and other thing. Seams. In this exercise, we are going to learn about seams. Seams are formed by stitches to attach two or more fabrics together. The first seam we are going to learn is a plain seam. Plain seam. Plain seam, mark 3/4 of an inch from here and draw a straight line where the seam is going to happen. So, the distance from starting to the end has to be 3/4 of an inch you are going to do a long straight seam called plain seam. When you are starting, the seam should have a reinforcement. So we should reinforce here for 3/8 of an inch while starting and end with 3/8 of an inch. With the help of the machine should be threaded, arranged properly, wipe it cleanly, then start by testing whether the stitch is perfect or not. Make it ready to do your proper seaming. And with the help of knee lifter, lift the pressure foot and insert the fabric. The line and the needle has to be on straight line, and you have to be on a straight posture, and switch on the machine. After setting the fabric only, we have to switch on the machine, and this is the back tack lever. First insert the fabric together near the needle and put the pressure foot down. Then hold the back tack lever and start sewing, and press the pedal forward and do stitch for 3/8 of an inch and press the lever back. The stitch will go back. Then again start the stitch on the same line. So at the starting point we reinforce the stitch for 3/8 of an inch to give enough support for the seam. Make to match the fabric together and do the stitch on the exact line by following the line, and then do the same thing at the end of the fabric. Also stop and press the lever, go back for 3/8 of an inch and come forward and stop needle and press the pressure foot and take it out. So we may get enough thread to cut. Then only the further stitch, that needle thread won't come out. So this is called plain seam. Started with the reinforcement and end with the reinforcement. The stitch is being perfect, and it should not have any skip stitches or loop stitches on both the sides. So you should check the stitch quality at both sides. This seam, plain seam, can be finished with the overlock at the edge to prevent the raw edge raveling, and it can be done as a press open seam also. And a simple method of avoiding the raveling is to cut with the pinking shears to make a zigzag effect. This is the simplest way of finishing the seam to avoid the edge fraying, and can be left like this, or it can be pressed open and leave it like this. This is the plain seam. You have to do a press this way first. The seam has to be pressed like this. Then if you want a flat surface at the right side, it can be pressed like press open seam. This is called press open seam. Will give a neat, flat seam without puckering and without any bulge. If the seam is turned to one side, the one side will be thicker. The seam is being pressed to one side look thicker and other side will be thinner. In order to avoid that, if you want the surface to be neat and match with the weight, you should do the press open seam, press it, then the surface at the right side looks similar. It looks neat. The weight will be balanced. If the seam is not straight, there will be a waviness will form. The seam look concave and convex while stitching. At the right side, it will form your wavy seam at the top. So you should be very careful to make a straight stitch on a line. Then only the right surface will be flat. So you should be very cautious about it to make the right side surface as flat without any puckering. Both the tension should be moderate, then only it can occur. When the bias piece and the straight piece or otherwise is the direction of both the pieces have changed, then you should take caution up for that. Otherwise, it will create a puckering on one side and flat surface on other side. So when you are attaching two pieces together, both the grain has to be similar, either warp and warp, weft and weft, bias and bias. If you want to attach warp and weft or bias and straight line, then some caution has to be taken to bring a neat, clean seam. Plain overlock seam. Now we are going to do plain overlock seam. The raw edge is going to be closed with the overlock. So first do the plain seam, place the fabric near the needle and do the back tack. On straight line. Now we should concentrate on how to close the raveling of thread. So now this frayed edge is going to be closed by the overlock stitch through overlock machine. Now the edge is covered with overlock. To press the seam, first you have to press on the seam as it is. Then you have to open it and do the pressing on the surface. So in this case, we can press the seam to one side only because both the layers is being overlocked together. So the seam is being pressed towards the side. This kind of seam will be used in hidden areas like side seams and the armhole and other thing. And you have to trim the extra thread at the overlock. and this seam is called plain overlock seam. Press open seam finished with overlock. Again you are going to do the plain seam, but this is going to be a press open seam. First we finish the raw edge on each pieces and do the pressing, stretch it and do the pressing, because while doing the overlock sometimes it may pucker, so you should neaten it and do the pressing, then match the seam, the raw edge together or the overlock together. Now we should press it again, and in order to avoid the slippage you can put pins in the starting position and in the end also, so it may avoid the slippage, and also we may adjust the length in place. So first position it, both the overlock has to be matched and the line has to be straight, and position it and pin it. Then do the seam as a plain seam. Fabric near the needle by lifting the pressure foot knee lifter and drop the pressure foot down and start doing the stitching as the plain seam. Start with the back tack and start do the stitch. When you are reaching the needle, you can remove the pin from there to your left hand and start do the straight stitch by following the line. It has to be straight. There won't be any wavy line or a curve line. Again, remove the pin when you reach the point and do the stitch as straight. This kind of a sewing will be helpful in a slippery fabric. The seam will be perfect. The tension and the placement of the fabric will be perfect, and finish with the back tack again and stop the needle and lift the pressure foot and stretch. Drop pressure foot and trim at the edge. The seam, first press on the seam as straight to flatten the seam line, then press open it, crease it, because the seam has to be flattened to the exact line. If it is not been flattened, then the bound kind, the extension will form and it will create a pleat over there. So you should be very careful while pressing. You should be creased at the right side also to flatten to the extent, and to the right and the wrong side also to flatten to this extent. So there won't be any pleat formation on both the sides. So again press on the right side to get a flat surface. So the creasing is very important. Then only it will get your flat surface here, otherwise it will get bounce over there and bounce over there and form a pleat kind of a thing. So the press open is done and the stitches, the seam has been very flat both at the right and wrong side of it, but the overlock will be visible at the right side. If you wanted to match with the color, you may use the self color overlock at the wrong side also, but there will be an impression of overlock at the right side. When the fabric is medium weight on a heavy weight. To get the flat surface, you can use this kind of a overlock to finish the raw edge. When the fabric is very thin, you may use your pinking shears finish to avoid the bulkiness of the seam in order to avoid the impression being seen at the right side. This seam is again the press open seam finished with overlock. Front seam. Now we are going to do the front seam. All the seam will come at the wrong side of the garment. Maximum seam. Only the flat fell and the front flat fell seam will come at the right side. So far we match the right side face to face, and then we did the seam at the wrong side. Now we are matching wrong side face to face to get a seam called front seam. So draw your straight line by 1/4 inch and start the seam with the back tack and do the stitch as straight and end with back tack. Now we have to trim the seam as straight and with the equal distance. So I trim this seam with 1/8 of an inch. End the seam. Press it flat. Now you can see the seam has got straightened. Again, crease it. When you are creasing, the seam allowance has to be faced towards one side. Then there won't be any twist on the right side. Again press it. Then fold the seam on the seam line. We folded the seam. Now this is the wrong side and this become the right side. So this seam is being closed now at the wrong side by doing the back tack and starting and the ending. The specialization of this seam is it is not necessary to do the overlock finish or a front pinking shear finish or with any kind of a finish to finish the raw edge. The raw edge is being closed within the seam. Now follow 3/8 of an inch distance and do the seam by doing the back tack, reinforcement and do a straight stitch. Reinforce and take it out. The seam called front seam, again press it, press the seam first, then open the seam, again crease it and then press it. Now the right side is clean, smooth, flat. The wrong side we had a seam. The raw edge is being closed within the seam called front seam. The advantage of this seam is not necessary to use the overlock or other finish for closing the raw edge. Mock front seam. This seam is called mock front seam. You have to start with a plain seam with a 3/4 of an inch distance. Do the plain seam with the whole back tack. Do the straight seam. Now press the seam and cut the edge as straight. Now press open it. Now fold this edge for 1/4 inch. Fold this by 1/4 inch and fold this edge by 1/4 inch. Now match both the edges together. Do another press. So we are going to stitch this edge. Both the edges to be turned inside and start the stitch again. So the raw edge is completely covered. The edges also be folded in and stitched as a top stitch, and the seam is also straight. Now you have to do the ironing. Press at once, press at the top by facing the seam to one side, and do the press on the right side also. This is called mock front seam. Lap seam. Now we are going to do run and fell seam. You have to take two pieces and place right side face to face, and there should be two lines, which is 3/8 of an inch. Totally the width has to be 3/4 of an inch. So one piece should be longer than the other piece. Keep the bottom layer must be 3/8 longer than the top layer, and start to do the overlock plain seam with the back tack. The plain seam is done with a spacing of 3/8 of an inch gap, and the seam is done, and press the seam. Then fold this 3/8 of an inch and do the pressing. And turn this layer and press at the right side also. To flatten the seam. Now you can see the fold has been covered. You have to do the press again, and in order to fix, you can place the needle. You should not place the needle by puckering. You should release the tension and put the needle as smooth. Otherwise, this will get twisted. This seam line will get twisted and roping will form over here. So fix it. The learner can fix this and then it will be perfect. So it should be flattened and position it. Then start do the stitch near the needle. Then start with the back tack. And the stitch has to be happen very near to the fold. When we are reaching the needle, please release the needle and press it to the flat. Release the pin, press it, do the stitch at the edge, because both the stitch has to be parallel. Finish with the back tack. Then press it. This is the, you can keep this also as the right side and that also as the right side, but we have to prefix which you want it to be the right side, because the seam has to be happen as such, and the seam must be parallel to each other, and it has to be covered and fixed the fold. It should not have skip stitch or run off stitches, and the right side should also be flat. I said that twist or roping will happen if the seam is not straight. A impression of diagonal thing will happen at the right side, other side. You may see the impression of little bit slant or bias, so that could be avoided by pinning in position. Fine. This is called lap seam. Bound seam. Now we are going to do the bound seam. Again, this is used to cover the raw edge of this. So the two pieces are there, and mark the right side and the wrong side of it. See, because this is to learning piece, I am marking with pen which is the right side and wrong side. When it is actual fabric, don't use any pen marking or a pencil marking. Nothing has to be marked. You may do the thread marking to find out the right and wrong side. Now this is the bound seam. Place the fabric right side face to face, and take 1 1/4 inch piece and place at the wrong side of it. Now start doing the seam with 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch as per the requirement. Match all 3 pieces together and do your plain seam with 3 layers together with the equal spacing as straight, and end with the back tack, trim. The seam, all 3 layers together, and crease the strip towards one side and press it. Then again fold, three-eighths of an inch, and one more fold. Cut. Fold it by 1/4 inch, crease it and press it. Again one more fold is to be happened. Now you should check the width of it. The width. The width is 3/8 of an inch. Maintain the same width for the entire length. And we have to close the seam. The previous seam has to be closed. Fold in such a way, the second fold has to be matched and close the previous seam by maintaining 3/8 of an inch as a fold to the entire length. And check whether this has been with a uniform width. Is there any correction? You have to do the correction then and there. Before starting. So position and check with the wrong side also with the same width, and the right side is also with the same width. Now we have to start doing the stitch to fix the second fold to the previous stitch. Now we are going to do the stitch. Start with the back tack. Release the pin, cover the stitch and do the stitch on the edge. Now do the pressing. So the raw edge is being covered with a separate contrast color fabric. This kind of a seam is used to cover the pocket and curved areas. Sometimes it is being used in the neckline also, and this can also be used to give a decorative seam look at the right side itself. In bags and in some other neckline and a seam also, this bound seam will be used in the right side itself. Now in order to give enough support and to avoid the frayed edge, we made the seam at the wrong side to identify the seam in a different color. We use the contrast color for it. This seam is called bound seam. The surface has to be very neat and clean, and the wrong side should also be very uniform in width and finish. So the seam should not be, the previous seam should not be seen outside. Slot seam. Now we are going to do the slot seam. First make a line, straight line of 3/8 of an inch and do the fold by pressing. So it should be straight. If it has been done on the curve and all, you have to follow the curve line and do the pressing. Now both the pieces been folded towards one side, and for the slat seam we can give a contrast color fabric behind, and then we are going to show your seam which has a decorative look to it. The seam has the look of having a contrast color in between. The gap should be even uniformly. So if you maintain to have 1/4 inch, you can maintain the 1/4 inch, or if you maintain to have 3/4 of an inch, it has to be maintained, and be sure that the line has to be very straight while folding. Generally the space will become uniform. So the width, the space width can be changed like 1/8 of an inch, or it can be 1/4 inch, or it can be 3/8 of an inch. See, according to your wish, you can change or spread the width and bring the contrast outside. So in slot seam, it's kind of a decorative seam. and I am going to leave 1/4 inch space in between, and then fix this separately and this separately, because this seam is going to be a separate seam and this seam going to be a separate seam. So you have to do the straight line. So one side is over. Now this seam is, check whether the seam line is straight. Next, you should place the other layer by giving 1/4 inch gap. The space or interval between the two pieces should be 1/4 inch. Yes, you have to check the space in between. It's uniformly pinned. First you have to stitch on this row, again you have to stitch on this row, but both the tension should be equal. This should not be tight or this should not be tight. You should put the pins in such a way that the equal spacing has to be happen, and then the tension of both the fabric should be the same. The wrong side, this is the right side. Now we'll start stitching. As I said, it is a decorative seam used to attach the panels and yokes and in the sleeve panels, wherever you wanted to make a design, to creating a contrast color in between, you can use a slot seam. This is also as stronger as other seam. The fabric selection should have been proper. Do the stitch on the edge. So the one side, the stitch has been done at the edge. Now we are going to do the other side. Start with the back tuck. The stitch should not be a slip stitch. We should be careful that we should make an edge stitch, not a slip stitch. This is slot seam. The quality parameter which is to be followed is the spacing in between to be the even width, and the stitch should be happen on the edge of the fold, and there should not be a slip stitch. If it is happen to be a slip stitch, then remove the entire seam and do the stitch again. And again it has to be a very close edge stitch. Now do the pressing. Now you can check the quality of it, and if this has been maintained as 1/16th of an inch, then it has to be maintained as 1/16th of an inch. Edge stitch distance has to be equal, and this width should also be equal. Now you can see the wrong side. It has the frayed edge on both the sides. These frayed edges can be closed by the overlock seam. Now you can do the overlock on this side separately, this side separately, like a press open seam. I need again to make it. Now you can see that both the sides, both the edges been overlocked, and this is the seam. Slot seam. We may reduce the width also. Pipe seam. Next one is the pipe seam. You may cut the straight piece or a bias piece and fold and do the pressing properly. Now the width with this folded piece, the fold edge has to be sandwiched. In between two layers, and then pin all three layers together and do a stitch on top of it, and a contrast color fabric like a pipe kind of a fabric can be inserted in between two layers. Now you can do the pinning. The width, the spacing has to be proper. So I sandwich the pipe piece which is being folded at the middle. The fold edge has to be inside, the frayed edge has to be outer, and the space, you may see the impression and follow the width of the thing that I'm following 3/8 of an inch as the width of the pipe, and then do the pinning, because it has to be uniform in width. Now you have to check that whether the space from a straight line to the fold edge is being uniform or not. That has to be uniform. Okay, you can't check it by open it now because the pin is being ended beyond. So you can start the stitch now. Start with the back tack. Start with the back tack. Now we did the stitch, start with the back tuck and end with the back tuck, and the stitch should be straight. It should not be wavy like this. If it isn't wavy, then the surface would have been like a floating one. And after opening it up, we can check the width of it should be uniform. Then press it up. First crease it to have a proper press, and then press it as straight. Your floating piece is there in between two layers, kind of a piping, so kind of a pipe, it's called as pipe seam. Now this raw edge can be closed with a overlock. Do the pressing on the seam. First we did the seam by 3/4 of an inch, then we did the overlock, and you can maintain the width as uniform, either by 1/2 inch or by 3/4 of an inch. But the piping width should remain as the same, whichever been fixed. It can be 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch. And you have to crease it flat. And seam should not float, it should be even, flat, and the spacing should be uniform. If you want, you may do a top stitch at the edge of it. If the fabric is thick, then you can do the top stitch to stabilize the seam towards one side. If it is a flimsy, thin silk fabric, the top stitch would have been avoided. This is called pipe seam.
Now we move on to dots.
Now we are going to stitch the dot. This is an half dot which has a shape in it. So I'll teach you how to trace the dot first. First do the tailor tucking with very loose thread. You have to allow threads over there. We can trace the dot with a dot hole also, but whereas in the delicate fabric, the fabric may slip. In that case, you have to do the tailor's tacking by hold this. You may put a pin over there in order to avoid the slippage, and then make a stitch with the loose tacking stitches, and also it's being a shaping dot. It should go onto your shape, and the shape should remain same for both the sides. Then only the bust shape and the bust size will be prominent. So you have to do the tacking, and at the end you may do the double tacking also, because we may identify the dot point wherever it ends. Okay. Now and loosen it, loosen the stitch like this, and then make a cut in between. Make a cut in between. Now we traced the dot for both left and right side of the piece. by following this, the folding has to be fixed, and do the stitching with the back tag, or we can make it with a tailored knot also. You can make the back tag within the seam allowance and follow the stitches by following the tailored tacking, and follow the shapes and curves there, and then bring to this end with a vanishing level. It has to vanish at here. Then make a cut. So our dot has been done. It's been vanished over there, and it's giving a shaping dot. But at the end of it, you can't do the back tag, because when you are doing the back tag, it may create a stiff end over there. So in order to avoid that, in order to get the smooth vanishing point, and this end has to be tailored knotted. That is means we have to untwist the stitch, untwist the thread, and then make knot. You should untwist it and then make knot at the end of it. One, two, three. Don't pull it tightly because it will create a pucker at the end of it. Okay, and cut at the end. It is called tailored knot. So it won't come out as quickly, but the dot end with the tailored knot, and the shape, it's a concave, it is giving a concave shape as a shaping dot. And remove the tacking from there, and the tailored knot will have a grip at the right side. Will have a grip at the right side, and also it may give the finish as the shaping dot. You do the pressing. Press the dot edge should face towards the side. It has to vanish on a point, and you may check the shape of the dot. And this is the center front. This is the center front, which has the dot to the bust point, 1 inch below the bust point, and the dot has to vanish at the end, and it is a concave dot. This dot should also be done as the same by following the thread marking. You should do the stitch by folding. Follow the notch mark. Follow the notch mark. The notch is here. Follow the notch mark and start with the back tag on the seam allowance, and the end point is here, and do the straight line and bring it as a vanishing point at here. Then do the tailor knot and do the tailor knot at the tip. The kind of, this is a straight dot, a straight dot, it's vanishing at the point, it's followed from the notch, and it's being straight in the line. But whereas this is a shaping one which has the shape over here, which give the proper fit for the bust. And at the tip of it, we should do the tailor knot, and there should not be any back tack at the vanishing point. But we can do the back tack at the starting point because it's going to go in the seam allowance. At vanishing point, it is not been allowed.
Let us now learn about the fish dart. Fish dart is otherwise called as double-ended dart. This will locate in between two mound. Take for example, when it's been taken on the at the back, we need to cover the across back mount and the bum mount. So we used to take the dart as a full dart from below the across back to above the bum. As the same we can take at the front also, at the waistline, and also in between the bust point, at the bust bridge, to create the bust mount.
Now we are going to do the fish dart. That when we trace the dot point to one side, it has to be on the same level to the other side. So match the center front and do the tacking. So open the dart, and you have to do the tacking at the starting point. With a little bit of a loose, and then at the both the vanishing point has to be tacked. And at the widest line, it won't come as angular part, it will be blended. So this 2 point will be straight. So match it. So, while blending the dot line, this 2 point will become straight. So you have to make that tacking there to identify that particular point. When the fabric is opaque and medium weight fabric without slipping, the direct tracing method is good. Whereas if the fabric is very sheer, slippery and lightweight fabric, even you trace by keeping it fold for both right and left side, it may happen to slip from its position. In that case, this kind of a transfer method will make the position as equal at both left and right side. So this fabric has to be pinned before tacking. Now all the sides, keeping the left and right side together. And then you should take a layer of it and do the cutting in between. So we trace the position of dot. So this is the fish dart position and this is the fish dart position. Now we can do the stitching by following the tacking. Now I am going to finish the dart in one piece. Make the fold as in the center line. Then follow the marking or follow the tacking and do the stitch as in a curve. Sometimes here it may go as a shaping dart, and this here it may come as a concave dart, and this portion it will be a convex, and here it will be concave and here it will be concave. So now we have to finish the darts. Start with the back tack because both the end are the vanishing dot points. So in that case we can't do the reinforcement stitch. Reinforcement of the double stitch will create a stiff and a bulk effect. So now we are going to do the stitch as plain without any back tack and leave some thread extra, and the bottom dart can be a concave dart which has little bit of a concave shape. After this it has to come as a straight line, then it has to be a convex, then it can be a little bit of a concave, and then it should vanish at the point. Now do the tailor knot at both the end of it and remove the tacking threads. Now do the pressing. There should be clear vanishing point and the curve should be proper. And at the waistline it should not be a point and a sharp point. It has to be a curve. Then only it fit along with the body shape. It can fit along with the body shape. We may check the fit in the dress form, then how the shape is been forming. And here also, when we take this as a concave curve, it may get bounce over there and it will fit for the abdomen shape. As such, here it will go as flat and then it will fit for the bust shape here. This may fit for the bust shape and this may fit for the abdomen shape. When we are taking a concave curve of a dart, it will give a convex effect on the upper surface. So this is called the fish dart or the full dart. In some darts, it will be taken straight and a blend and straight line also, and it has to vanish at a point. So this also fits for the normal body and that will give a very smooth, clean fit along with the body. So it is like convex, but the waistline will be straight and it will be straight over there and straight over there. We will do the pressing and find the difference. Vanishing point has to be very flat and the bust point should also be very flat, and here it's not a conical sharp point, it has to be blend and give a curve at the waistline. When stitching the dart itself, we can identify how the body shape has to be. So remove the extra thread of the tailor knot and finish the dart by making a tailor knot at both the ends.
Next comes tucks. Tucks is a embellishment of fabric surface and garments. It can be narrow tuck, wide tuck. And a thin tuck is called as a pin tucks, and it varies from 1/4 inch to 1 inch also.
First mark 1 inch at both the side of the fabric and do the ironing by folding that 1 inch into straight.
After marking 1 inch on both the side, we need to ensure that both top and the bottom 1 inch has to be straight line. Crease it and do the pressing. Every 1 inch has to be creased and pressed, and the space between the press to be equal as 1 inch, check it has to be the parallel crease as 1 inch.
We finish ironing. You have to do quadrant stitch on each fold. Pin the fold. Pin each the fold, then the fabric won't slip. Pin each fold and do a quadrant stitch near the fold stitch. So we are going to continue quadrant stitch on each fold because we made the fold the 1 inch interval. When you make the stitches on that particular level, then it will give the equal distribution, then the perfection, the quality of the tuck will also be perfect. So today now we are doing the quadrant tucks. Follow the guideline. There is a guideline in the machine. You have to feed the fabric by following this quadrant guideline and then do a straight stitch. Doing straight stitch is very important, and we have to start with the back tack and end with the back tack. It's a normal procedure. See, for the identification and understanding, we are using the contrast color for it. Usually it has to be done with the shelf color. Shelf color thread is to be used. second fold and do the pinning and release this. This has to come out. This has to come out and fold and pin each fold. See, when it has been a cotton fabric or a medium weight fabric, the slippage will be less. When in the case of slippery fabric, we should take more initiation to control the fabric. So this method will help you to avoid from slippage and also to get a proper equal stitch throughout. Again, do with the back tack. Consecutive stitches has to be happened by following the same method. Now the subsequent stitches of 1/4 inch has been happened. So this looks like it's a tuck, and we have to iron the tuck by facing towards one side. So all the tucks are facing towards one side, and and you have to press. If there is a fold formation at the back side, then the space between the tuck will vary. So you have to stretch and do the pressing at the back side. But the dot should face towards one side only. But you have to do the stretching and ironing at the back side to get a proper spacing in between the tucks. So the 1/4 inch tuck is being done. It has to be done to the entire piece. So here the trimming has to be happen because the back tuck is done at both the sides. You have to trim the excess and check the stitch quality and seam quality. The stitch and seam should be straight enough. This is called 1/4 inch tuck. The same 1 inch interval or half an inch interval ironing has to be happened for a pin tuck also. Now I am going to do the pin tuck on the other side, that you have to mark as per this, as per the 1/4 inch, mark 1 inch interval and fold it, and then do the stitch. The stitch distance has to be 2 mm or 1 mm from the fold. So it creates a very tiny tuck called as pin tuck. Yes, pin the fold line and start to do the stitch on the edge. That's 1/16 of inch or 2 mm away from the fold. The seam, the stitch has to happen with the proper 2 mm as a guideline. And the same stitch has to be repeated for the entire fold. Following the distance, the edge distance of 2 mm is very important. You can't skip the stitch. If the thread is broken in between, you should rip this entire seam and do it again. You can't continue from the broken seam or broken stitch. It has to be start again, rip the seam. The tuck facing towards one side. It has to face towards one side only. Basic pin tuck has to face one side only. Then reverse it back and release the space in between the tucks. Stretch and do the ironing here. Then only the uniform interval will form in between the tucks. So the pin tuck is being stitched at here. We may trim the extra thread this side and the other side also. So we did 1/4 inch tuck and the 1 inch pin tuck. We may do the 1/2 inch tuck also, and you can take the fold and do the stitch by 1/2 inch. As such, you take the fold and do the 1/2 inch. When the thing is being overlapped, the stitch won't be visible. That tuck is called blind tucks. So where the subsequent tucks has to be happened, but the stitch should not be shown. The next tuck has to conceal the stitch of the previous thing. That kind of a tuck is called as a blind tuck. We may do with a different width.
Dot tucks. Again, it is a decoration of the garment. It has been taken in a dot of the way it will be stopped. So it will give the fit along with the body, then it look like a tux.
This is a dot tuck which you have to trace the dot line, and the length and the width has to be as per the tracing line. Then do the back tack and follow the stitch and stop in the middle wherever you want the length to be stitched, and then release it. When you are opening it, the dot will also be there, and your creation of pleat will also be there. There will be a pleat and a dot. So it may give a proper fit, like where the dot gives as a fitted, and this will act like a decorative pleat. So it's called as dot tuck. Dot tuck. This is called dot tuck. It will be fitted and stitched to some extent. Then there will be a pleat, look like a decorative one.